Good evening and welcome. My name is Alfredo Chaparro and I'm the director of the Midland College Business and Economic Development Center. Our mission is to help people increase credit scores, purchase homes, and start or expand a small business. Tonight, the topic is entrepreneurship. As MC President, Dr. Steve Thomas interviews Brian and Laura Sales of the Sales Team Realtors in Midland, Texas. Dr. Thomas, I hand it over to you.
Thank you, Alfredo, and good evening, everyone. This is a real pleasure for me to be able to, be the host for our conversation with Laura and Brian Sales. Thank you for being here this evening to share your expertise and your experiences with our students and the community. But before we do that, and by the way, I do have some questions for you to answer, but there's not going to be a test later, I promise. It would probably be helpful for our audience to know a little more about who you are and maybe some of your background. So I'll just kind of leave that as an open-ended question. So tell us a little bit about yourselves.
Well, I'm Laura Sales, and thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. We're excited to share a little bit about our business with people and how we've come to where we are today, and the idea of entrepreneurship, which is very near and dear to our hearts in the real estate business. So I have been in Midland now and in real estate almost 20 years. Actually moved to Midland for the first time in 1990, right out of graduate school, and I spent about 15 years in the long-term care business as a nursing home and retirement home administrator. And so Midland is my home. I've been here longer than anywhere else in my life, and it's home to me. So I've loved living here. I've loved this community, and I've loved having an opportunity to be a part of it. So Brian and I married about 12 years ago, and we'll let him tell the story of how we met. We have 4 children and 7 grandchildren and number 8 on the way. So we have a very full life and very blessed.
Very blessed indeed. In fact, yes, I've been in Midland about 15 years, born and raised in Colorado. Lived in a couple other places, but primarily Colorado. About 15 years ago, I relocated from Colorado Springs, Colorado to the Rio Grande Valley, McAllen, Texas. And it was a climate, geography, and culture shock all at once, but absolutely loved it. Was there for a couple of years as the director of advertising for a newspaper group. Began working on my real estate license. I was going to be the token gringo realtor in McAllen, Texas. And God had other plans. I got headhunted. Hearst Newspapers, Charlie Spence and Dave Wadle brought me to Midland, Texas to be the advertising director for the MRT. The second day in Midland, I went to a realtor function. And that just a bunch of realtors getting together and having a function. I went to that to meet members of the community, movers and shakers. That night I met 2 particular realtors. One was Martha, who was the current president of the Board of Realtors, and the incoming president of the Board of Realtors, Laura Lyons. Day 3 in Midland, I was beginning my job, and I called Laura and said, I met you last night at the event, would you help me buy a house? A couple months later, we had looked at houses, we'd gone under contract. I called her again and I said, I'm missing my Laura time. And
I said, I can show you more houses, but I'm not sure why.
I said, I was thinking dinner.
So we had dinner, and when you find a man named Sales, you should marry him. Tip number 1 for any entrepreneur. So anyway, we have been married now for about 12 and a half years.
When you have a last name like Sales, you ought to build a business around it. So,
exactly.
So thus the Sales Team Realtors. Yeah. Primarily, my primary identity today, beyond being being husband to my wife, is grandpa. And so, we're parenting a 3-year-old grandson and enjoying time with the others, and that's a great thing.
So was it Laura that really persuaded you that going into real estate as a business was the right move?
As I said, I had started moving in that direction when I was down in McAllen. Uh-huh. When I came to Midland, I kind of set that aside with the opportunity with Hearst Newspapers. They said, give us 2 years and we'll see how it goes, and we'll promote you to general manager or publisher in one of our other properties. That in fact came to fruition. At about 2 years, I got a call and was offered a position as publisher in Edwardsville, Illinois. MRT at the time was about 25,000 circulation. The Edwardsville paper was about 6,000 circulation. So it was top job, small newspaper, but we were 1 month away from our wedding. And I said, you know, I think I'm staying in Midland. And it was the right decision.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. So you were already in real estate.
Yes.
Okay. And you had kind of dabbled around the edges.
I initiated it, and I just decided I'm staying in Midland. So
Okay.
great opportunity to go ahead and finish out my licensing classes and get licensed and join the business.
Okay.
When I joined the business, we did not become a team. You know, I was not her buyer's agent or assistant. I just wanted to start my own thing, and that has kind of been our theme, or the way we've operated all along. We run our business together, but we manage our sales and our clients separately.
Okay, so it was about that time that you thought about opening your own agency.
Well, actually, no, that did not come for a while.
Okay.
And to be real honest, I don't know that it would have been something that I would have done. And I think that that's one of the things that I would like to encourage people and kind of talk through is how do you work together if you're working with a spouse or with a partner? And one of the things that we have learned over the last 12 years of life and business together is that we really have to allow the other person's strengths to work for us. And sometimes I think Brian's the big picture guy, okay? So he probably knew when he got his real estate license that he was going to own a brokerage, and he probably thought he was going to own brokerages across the state of Texas that day. Me, I'm just like, what's the next house I'm going to sell? Okay? Because that's how I'm wired. He's wired very differently. And so the two of us together really allow each other to kind of do their thing and lead in the way that they're wired, and then going with the strengths of each of us. So we didn't really think about opening a brokerage for several years, and then the opportunity came for us to do that, and we spent a lot of time and effort making that happen, and at the end of the day, it didn't happen the way we thought it would. So there was a lot of disappointment and kind of a bit of a setback there, and we looked at each other and said, okay, we've spent all of this time and effort and energy to own a real estate brokerage. How are we going to make that happen now? Because the first avenue didn't work quite the way we thought it was going to.
Yeah.
And so we regrouped.
It didn't work the way we thought it was going to, or that it should work, but actually it worked out exactly the way it was supposed to. One of our favorite phrases is a setback is a setup for a comeback.
That's right.
You know, a sprinter takes a step back and leans back before they launch, and that setback was really our launching pad.
Yeah.
And honestly, when you're in a business for yourself and when you're starting a business, you're going to have setbacks. And I think that that's one of the things that you really need to be able to say, okay, this is a temporary situation. We're going to push forward. We're going to keep moving. We're not giving up. And we're going to figure out another way to accomplish what we know we're supposed to do.
Yep.
And so we did that.
Yep.
And that's in December of 2014, when oil went from 100 and whatever a barrel to 30 something a barrel or 20 something a barrel. We opened the Sales Team Realtors.
Okay.
Brian and I and 2 assistants, and we have grown since then.
Yep.
Okay, so what's changed since you became owners of a realty?
Well, you know, I think one of the things that has changed is we've become more focused and acutely aware of our values, our philosophies, our standard, our systems, and our purpose. I think that's what's changed the most, is just becoming more acutely aware of values and purpose and our why.
And one of the things that we first did when we started the sales team is Brian and I spent a lot of time, we work with an amazing coaching company, business coaches, and we spent a lot of time talking through what is our culture, what is it that we believe in, How do we operate so that as we are growing our business, we can always look at that growth through the lens of our core values. And those core values and how, when we're looking for agents to recruit, we're recruiting against core values. When we're making decisions on what business we take, what business we don't take, how do we do things, we're looking at those core values. And so I think that that's been a really huge part of how we have developed and grown as a business. The other thing that I think has been really good, and we've always known that as a sole proprietor or as an entrepreneur, you wear 3 hats. You are your CEO, you are your COO, and you are your CFO. Your Chief Executive Officer, your Chief Operating Officer, and your Chief Financial Officer. And as an individual business owner, you have to wear all 3 of those hats or it's not going to work. And so I think that has made us even more focused on making sure that we're wearing those hats and that we're doing all 3 of those jobs. We know that the CEO is the one that needs to drive sales and marketing and set the goals for the company. And that is super important to have that. The COO is the one who gets the job done. You still have to be really good at what you're doing and the customer service part of what we're doing. And then, of course, the financial management as well. If you don't have one of those 3, your business is going to struggle. And so I think it's really important, and I think we kind of honed that as we were doing our own brokerage as well.
Absolutely. We're business owners and we're real estate salespeople. So there's a huge difference between working in your business as an expert professional, but also working on your business as an entrepreneur. Right. And those are separate roles. And as an individual entrepreneur, you've got to work at each role. We often say, "Hey, I want to be my own boss." That's great, but you got to be a boss. That also means you are your own employee, Right. And so I am my own worst employee.
And every now and then you have to ask yourself, if I were someone else's employee, would I still be employed? Because I think sometimes as individual, you have to stay, it's self-motivated. You have to keep going at it every day.
Every day. Go to work.
Yeah.
Go to work every day.
Absolutely.
Well, I want to go back. You said something earlier about what's made you work as a team, and as a couple, I would assume also, as you play off of each other's strengths. So those roles are very distinct roles, the CFO, the COO, and the CEO. So who gets to play what role, or do y'all change out?
Well, and we do have a phrase, and that is stay in your lane. Okay. Stay in your lane.
Declare your lane.
And stay in your lane.
Stay in your lane.
Okay.
So in our particular company, what we have worked out is that every real estate brokerage requires a responsible broker, and that responsible broker sponsors the sales agent. So every real estate licensee or sales agent must be sponsored by a broker. And that broker is responsible for the legal activities, the contracts of that agent, and that agent's representation of their clients. That's the responsible broker. So, but also in a business, you need a general manager, somebody who's driving the marketing, somebody who's paying the bills, somebody who's cutting the checks and doing those sorts of things. So that's how we have defined our lane, declared our lane. Laura is our responsible broker. I am also a broker. I'm an associate broker in our firm, but I act as the general manager. So that's our working on our business and how we operate among ourselves and how we can be partners without clashing.
Sure. Okay, so you mentioned coaching, and that kind of brings me to another question I have. As you have grown professionally, who in your career do you look to as been significant influences on your work and your professional growth, a mentor or a coach, someone of that caliber?
Well, I've had an opportunity to work for some amazing brokerages and brokers. And honestly, I've just been so blessed with so many people pouring into me and helping me. Other agents, when I first started in the business, I worked for another agent, and just what she taught me. And then when I went out on my own as just a sole agent out there, So many of the agents in our office at the time just really helped me. They poured into me. I've had great brokers that were managers that taught me so much about brokerage, and Pat Chancellor, just broker in this town forever, and just what she taught me. And she'd always start with, like, you don't understand anything about brokerage, Laura, because seeing it from an agent perspective versus a broker perspective, and just learning from her was a huge benefit. And then, as we said, we coach with a company called Buffini and Company. They're the largest coaching company in the country. They specifically focus in on real estate. And I've had an opportunity to coach with them now for 16 years. And have a personal coach that holds us accountable and helps us with specifically our business. And then just the educational opportunities that come with that, and the opportunity to have other like-minded people all over the country that we can associate with and that we can reach out to when we need something, when we have questions. And just kind of that community that we have is hugely important as far as mentoring.
Okay. That's good. I've had a number of mentors, I would say, very early in my high school years, and right out of high school, I worked for a small furniture company, and Cliff Rizzuto was the owner of that company, and he was like a pseudo dad to me. I learned a lot about small business, work ethic, and adaptability from Cliff. When I started my first business at the age of 19, I asked my mom, I said, do you think I should do this? And while it was a very brief and short statement, it's meant a lot to me. She said, I don't know why you wouldn't. And it was just kind of enough encouragement to brave the unknown and start that business. Moving to Midland, there's a number of leaders in Midland that are great mentors, and I've learned a lot from. Charlie Spence, I mentioned earlier, is a great one of those. And what I've learned from Charlie is the attitude of giving back and giving back to the community and serving the community that so well serves us.
That's great advice for our students who are listening and watching the show, because I think it's really important to have someone that you can trust, that you can talk to, that can give you good advice.
Absolutely. And even, just take advantage of those little opportunities that come up. I remember when I was new in the real estate business, and I just happened to be in a broker's office. It was not my own broker, but another company where I was dropping something off, and that broker made a comment to me that I have never forgotten. Brian Cooper. I was one of the adjunct professors here for real estate, I believe. He teaches the real estate classes here at Midland College. And Brian is still one of my go-to people. When I have a question, I need something, he will always answer the phone and help. And he said something about, don't be fooled by people who advertise how much they sold. He sold this many millions of dollars. He said, what really matters is what you put in the bank at the end of the day. How are you managing that money? How are you managing the business? And so that's really, you've got to think about that. And I think as a new agent, it kind of gave me the perspective. And so that little nugget of information, that I was able to glean. And he was so gracious, he didn't even know he told me that, probably. But anyway, just take advantage of those opportunities when you can talk to someone. Sit down with them for a couple of minutes. Seek people out and say, hey, let's go to coffee, or could you spend a little time with me? I'm curious about how you do this or how you do that. And we have found in our career that there are so many kind and generous people out there that are very willing to share. And we want to be those kind of people as well, which is why we're here.
Yeah, absolutely.
No.
I coach with the same company as well, and that was a requirement for me to join her in business because
because I was not going to be his coach, okay?
and so, but an additional thing that's been so valuable to me is building a network of relationships of other professionals in the community that are not necessarily real estate. My financial advisor, my life insurance agent, and a number of other professionals like that, we've kind of grouped together and formed a mastermind sort of group. My banker is my best friend, and those are people you can lean into for wisdom and and business advice that are not necessarily competitors.
Yeah. Okay, well, you've explained how you kind of manage your business and the roles that each of you have to play, and how important that is to keep on track, to keep serving your mission, your purpose. Right. I'm just curious, was there something that happened that was a catalyst, or it was like, this is the time we got to go, when you decided you were going to start your business?
We were, as real estate professionals, you are in business. As an individual real estate agent, you are a business owner. You're not an employee, you're an independent contractor, and you're running your own business. Right. And we were at the other brokerage running our own business and doing very well and having a lot of success. And the owner of the brokerage approached us one year and asked if we would consider buying her out. And we discussed it and had that opportunity to kind of evaluate where we were in business and life, and it was not the right time. But yet a couple years later, she approached again, and it was the right time. We prayed about it, and we said, this is an opportunity to fulfill a greater purpose in our business life, and that is not just to serve our clients, but we've learned a lot, and we've got a lot of experience, and we would love to help others, pass on that wisdom, pass on that knowledge, and help others grow their business. And being a brokerage owner and recruiting agents and mentoring and training and encouraging agents, it really is very fulfilling to us. And so it was the right time, and we entered into a process of due diligence and licensing and business plan and finance, and it was a process of about 4 months, 5 months,
yeah.
And we knew we were in God's plan and doing the right thing.
Okay.
And,
Just didn't quite work out the way we thought it would.
and it didn't work out, and that was the setback. That was the setup for the comeback.
Yeah.
And that we had done all of the due diligence, and we had created the foundational structure to be brokerage owners. It just wasn't that brokerage. It was this brokerage.
Okay.
Start our own.
Yeah. And that's what, I really want people to know, that when you go down this path to owning your own business, it's not always going to go the way you plan it. I promise you that. It's always going to have some setbacks. Things are not going to happen the way you think they are. And, sometimes things are just going to go really super smooth and everything's going to be great. But if you know that this is what you're supposed to do, I just tell you, bet on you. Bet on you, and keep going and keep moving forward, because it is going to happen for you. It might just not happen the way you planned it. And so I think that anyone thinking about owning their own business, entrepreneurship, needs to know that, it's not always pretty, but there is great reward for the work that you put in. So keep going.
Okay, so you opened your independent company.
Yep.
Did you ever think about franchising? Or did y'all weigh the pros and cons of maybe going with a larger franchise that might give you more reach, more agents?
What the interesting thing about real estate from our perspective, and being in the real estate business, is a little different than selling a product, okay? If you are wanting to sell chicken sandwiches and you have an opportunity to own a Chick-fil-A or sell your own brand of chicken sandwich, you might go Chick-fil-A, right? Because of what the brand brings to the table.
The consumer is focused on the product. And in real estate, it's not a product-centric situation. It's a relationship-centric situation. And so while franchises may bring a national branding opportunity, national marketing, established operating procedures and practices, some technology and systems in place, that is what we would get with a franchise. But we honestly, for us, we didn't feel like that was the right choice for us. We wanted to build our business on relationships, not products or service centric. For better or worse, we wanted to develop our own systems, our own standard operating procedures.
Sure.
We wanted to, you know, as an entrepreneur, you think you can do things better. So we wanted that opportunity to create something better. And, you know, so for us, that's the right choice. Is it the right choice for everybody? Not necessarily. You know?
And I think that, you know, for me personally in my business, and, you know, taking away the brokerage, me as an agent, okay, because we are agents as well as brokerage owners.
Right.
I could be selling real estate out of my my bedroom at the house. My clients are my clients. They're my people. And over the years, we have years and years and years of relationship built up, and very specifically working to do that and to deepen those relationships and to work my business by referral through those relationships. And so it wouldn't matter if I was XYZ company, my people are my people.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that, you know, that's the distinction in real estate, where it may not necessarily be in if you're selling products or a different type of service.
Okay.
So we've had many opportunities and discussions with different franchises, and
They always call Brian.
the number of
They never call me. They always call Brian.
Because
the
those
number of
aren't your
those
people.
franchises and business models are growing exponentially.
Right.
And there's the franchise brokerages of which you speak. There's the a model where it's a single broker and maybe 5,000 agents spread out across the country. Mm-hmm. And we're probably bucking the trend. We're brick and mortar. We're the right size company. We're not looking to be 100, 200, 5,000 agents. We're the right size company serving our clients. And we're building our relationship off, or our business off of relationships.
You know, and the right size for us is about 8 to 10 agents per leader. Mm-hmm. So here in Midland, the right size for us is about up to 20 agents. And when we're close to that now, about 3 years ago, we had an opportunity to move into another community. And so we looked at that and said, you know, if we could get a great partner there, we can make this work. And so we brought Nathan Pinkerton, was one of our agents in our office here, and we said, hey, Nathan, what would you think about moving to Johnson County? And after he said, where's that? He was very quickly on board. And so we opened up the Sales Team Realtors DFW and have an office now in Burleson, just south of Fort Worth. Uh-huh. And that Johnson County area, serving all of that area, and building that up. So we looked at opportunity to grow in a different way than it might be just to have one large mega office, but to expand our footprint through other offices and areas.
Okay. Now, my dad was an entrepreneur, and he used to have this saying, if you're not growing, you're declining.
Oh, absolutely.
And so that really, you kind of answered my next question, is how has your company grown since y'all started? And it sounds like you've added employees, you're enlarging your footprint.
We have about 18 agents here in Midland, and then we have the office in Burleson that started with 1, and we now have 4. And so it's building a little slower than we expected, and I think that's another thing to talk about when you're looking at building a business and going and expanding a business, that you really need to be sure you've got the cash reserves to do something like that, because it is an investment. And we are committed to it, and we're making it work, and working hard there to grow that business as well. So great opportunity.
So when you bring in new employees,
agents.
How do you, indoctrination is the wrong word, how do you teach them the values that you want them to live in the work?
Well, we have a really strong set of core values that we developed from the very beginning. And the foundation of those values is that we understand that real estate is not about a transaction. Real estate is about life events. And those life events typically involve things like, people having babies, people getting married, unfortunately people dying and divorcing, job transfers. We need a larger house because, we've got children moving back home. Or we need a smaller house because our last one's gone off to college. And so these life events, and helping people transition through those life events by serving them professionally in real estate, is the foundation of our business.
And then on top of that, we have what we call cornerstone values. And the first is we count relationships, we don't count transactions or dollars. Money matters,
Yep.
and that's
You have to track it.
and we track that. But we're doing business by relationships. We're doing things with excellence, and excellence isn't perfection. It's doing the very best you can with the time, talent, resources, and energy that you have available to you, so that that customer, that client, has a great experience. Integrity, putting others first, and then. When we first started our company, our fourth cornerstone value was no drama.
No drama.
Because there's just enough drama in real estate that you have to manage as an agent or a broker that you ought not to be the source of it. Well, we give out company awards. Certainly we give out production awards to our agents each year, but the ones that crack them up and really mean something is that Grace Award. We've renamed No Drama to Grace. And then excellence and integrity and relationships. We honor our agents and our staff who demonstrate those values. We recognize them for that. So that's one way. And we practice it all the time. We filter, as Laura said earlier, we filter our decision-making processes first through our values. Mm-hmm. Is it the right thing? Is it excellent?
Is it building up a relationship?
Are we focused on that relationship? Are we helping them accomplish that next transition in their life? And then are we doing that in grace, with kind words, thoughts, and actions towards them and towards ourselves? Yeah. So if you filter your decision making, if you know what your values are and you know what your purpose is, the decisions are easy.
Okay. Well, you know the old expression, hindsight is 20. If you have 20/20.
Yeah, but we're going to forget 2020. We don't want it.
Well, that's a
2020
good.
done.
Yeah, we want 2020 in our.
I'm talking about
Let's say
vision.
hindsight is 2021.
But if you could look back, I mean, if you could go back, not look back. We all look back, unfortunately, and I'm really looking forward to 2021 myself. But if you could go back to the beginning. Because I know there's some young entrepreneurs in the audience right now that are thinking, I really want to do this, you know, whatever this is. What would you do differently? What are lessons learned now that you're further down the road than some of our audience is?
You know, I think that probably one of the lessons that I have learned and what I would do differently is what I talked about earlier, and that's those hats that you wear. And as an individual business owner, it doesn't matter if you're selling some product online or you're opening up your own heating and air conditioning service or a restaurant or whatever. That CEO hat of sales and marketing has got to be your focus. And you've got to spend time in it every day, because that is what's going to drive the customers so that you can provide great service. You might be the best, you know, like I said, you know, heating and air conditioning guy out there, and you've got great skills. But if people don't know about your skills and you're not doing that sales and marketing part of that, you're not going to drive the business, and it's going to be very difficult to be successful. So keep in mind that just because you're really good at something and you have a lot of talent and skills and abilities, that doesn't necessarily mean you'll have a successful business, because you need that. If you've got a three-legged stool, the CEO portion of that sales and marketing, is extremely important.
Okay. Yeah, I think calculated risk. We would probably take more risks than we did. You know,
he would take more risks.
In hindsight, in hindsight, I think we've hesitated too often, and let some opportunities slip by. I don't mean to say be risky. I mean, mediate your risk, manage your risk, plan for setbacks and what you might do. But we would probably take more risks. Probably the other piece of advice I would have is don't spend money that doesn't drive revenue. Manage your expenses. So yeah, the CEO is driving sales and marketing and driving revenue, and the COO wants to spend the money to get the job done. One of the mistakes I think I made, or I would do differently, is when we were at the other brokerage, every agent in that brokerage had a desk phone as part of the phone system. And so when we started our brokerage, I invested in a phone system, and every agent had a phone, voice over IP, with a
Every bell
virtual
and
fax
whistle.
number and virtual voicemail. I mean everything. And $37 a line that grew to 24 lines per month, and a survey among our agents says, how many of you use your desk phone? 2%. 2%.
Yeah.
So, you know, you got to calculate, you know, those expenses. Don't spend money unless it's driving revenue. And I would caution people about buying systems and equipment when they're available for lease. Just because it's about driving revenue, but it's also about conserving cash. As a CEO of your company, your job is to make money for your company. As an employee of your company, you get to take a salary. But at the end of the year, or occasionally during the year, you're going to bonus your CEO, and you're going to bonus your CFO and your COO and your favorite employee based on production and success. So be careful not to starve the baby, to pull too much cash out. Just keep putting cash back in, put cash back in, feed that business like it's a newborn baby, and protect that. Protect the money.
Most brokerages work with their agents that all agents are independent contractors, and they typically work on what we call a split. The broker keeps a certain percentage of your income, you get a certain percentage of your income. When Brian and I opened up our company, we were accustomed to a very nice high split at our other brokerage. Well, we opened up the Sales Team Realtors, and we both got put on a 50-50 split.
The general manager made that decision.
And and number one agent was not happy about it. No, I'm teasing. But we did that. And 50% of everything we made as individual agents was going into our business and to the brokerage so that we could grow that. And so, I mean, you cut at home. You take what you have to, you know, and if you need to cut at home in order to invest in your business, you need to do that. As he said, don't starve the baby. You've got to be feeding that business. So,
when you think about young entrepreneurs starting out, you know, and one person, and you talked just earlier about it's important to be able to market your business. It's important to have these other functions going on. But if you're the one person that's going to try to build something, what advice would you give that one person of how to take the next steps?
The first piece of advice I would give that one person is to stay focused on a very specific niche. Yes. Go narrow and go deep. A lot of young entrepreneurs...
Get rich in a niche, they say. Get rich in a niche.
A lot of the young entrepreneurs and business owners, I think a little bit out of fear, try to do too much. You know, we know the phrase jack of all trades, but they will try to be everything to everybody, everywhere. Define your market space geographically. Define your niche. What are you extremely good at? Get better at that. Be known as the expert in that one thing. Go deep, go deep, go deep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, and then the other thing that I would say is I think that when I talk about that sales and marketing function, it's a function of consistency. And, you know, okay, so we do our sales and marketing and we generate leads and we generate these opportunities and we get all busy in our COO role, taking care of clients or selling their product or whatever it is that we're doing, our customer service function. And we kind of put that sales and marketing off on the back burner. And then what happens is we get done. For us in real estate, okay, I've got 5 deals going. I got to juggle all these balls and keep everything going, get them closed. Now I got them closed. Where's my next transaction coming from? And so if you can systemize your sales and marketing and be consistent in whatever it is that you choose to do in your business and just make that automatic as much as possible. So your sales and marketing is like this, your transactions or your business is not going to be doing this, because you have that consistency. So I think systemizing things is
Okay.
really important. And then the other piece of advice I would have for people, and I know you asked for individual sole proprietors, but I would also say do not hesitate to hire your help when you need it, and maybe even before you think you need it. You know, my business, my personal real estate business, went up 30% the year I hired a part-time assistant, okay? I was scared to death to pay someone $10 an hour to work for me for 20 hours a week, because how in the world am I going to pay this person if I don't sell something?
Yeah.
She gets paid before I do, right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, once I did that, it was the best decision I've ever made. So don't put it off for too long. And as you look at hiring someone, hire your gaps, all right? Someone else can do administrative work, because that's not the highest and best use of my time.
Yeah.
And so look at what you're really good at. As Brian said, go deep with that, and then allow other people to come in and do some of the other things for you.
And then also to answer that question, you asked about what if they aren't the best marketer? Contract somebody who is a good marketer. So I have a social media consultant that does social media posts for us. I have an IT consultant that just does IT work for us. Could I figure all that out? I think so. I probably could do Facebook and Instagram, but is that the highest and best use of my time? I don't always think that. I think, so we have hired specialists in some of those areas to fill our gaps, think where we're not the best at, so that we can focus on those things that are the highest and best use of our time.
Okay. I have one more question, and then
Sure.
we're going to start taking some questions from the audience.
Okay.
You talked about setbacks, and you know, things don't always go the way you expect or the way you plan, and so how do you deal with the stress, the physical and emotional stress of being entrepreneurs and
married to each other?
well, I didn't say that, but you could go ahead and speak
I
to
knew
that.
that was coming. I knew that was coming.
But just how do you handle all the stress? I mean, that's being human.
It is being human. And, you know, I think that, obviously stress is a part of life, and I think we can make our choices of how we manage that stress and how we deal with that stress. And I think one of the things that's been very important to both Brian and I in our journey as business owners is to really look at personal growth and development and how we can, I think stress, when you're looking at it from a opportunity for growth and development, and when your focus is right, keeping your attitudes in check, which actually when you work with your spouse is a really easy thing to do, because we are very good at kind of checking each other. There's some not so great things about working with your spouse as well, but there are some really good things about it. And I think that we have an opportunity to look at those setbacks, and we have an opportunity to look at that stress. And yeah, there are days we go home and it's not been pretty, okay? And we are not Pollyannish and say, oh, just be happy. No, that's not reality. But when you know that you are doing what you're supposed to be doing, and when you are pursuing good things, and you're putting good things in your head, if you've been sitting around in the last 6 months and watching politics and pandemics, you're not in the right mindset to run a business. You're just not.
No.
And so really honestly pursuing that personal growth and development, putting good stuff in, focusing on good things, being intentional about that, I think has made a huge difference.
I think stress comes from fear, which is a lot of times just the unknown, facing the unknown. And I believe that you fight fear with truth and action. So focus on truth. As she said, take in good input, good truthful comments. Know your purpose, know your why, focus on activities. Successes or measures of success don't come with dollar signs. You know, it's that phone call that says, hey, I just wanted to check in, or a phone call from a past client that says, can you help my friend? That's a success. That's a win.
Yeah. It's amazing. We have two questions here that our students kind kind of queuing in on what we've been talking about, one question is, how do you keep a positive attitude during this pandemic?
Oh, and honestly, first of all, 2020, personally, a very challenging year. Business-wise, somewhat of a challenging year. Emotionally and culturally and all of that, I think that it has been very difficult. But once again, I think that our focus has been on, first of all, what can we learn from this? How can we grow from this? What things are we going to put our focus on?
And who can we serve?
And who can we serve through this? When everything first started, I'm like, okay, what can we do to help people? I mean, we need to help people. What is it that we can do? And as part of our business, one of the things that we do is we pop by people's homes with a little something, something to say, hey, good to see you. Here's a little something, something. If you know someone I can help, I'd love to help them. And, you can't pop by people's house in the middle of a pandemic, right?
Right.
But you know what you can do?
What?
You can buy board games on Amazon for their family and mail them to them, which is one of the things that I did, and say, you know what, I know you're probably stuck in the house. I hope this helps.
Yeah.
And, I sent Yahtzee games, okay, to I don't know how many people. So what can I do to serve people? What can I do to make a difference?
Yeah. The kind of here question feeds right into that. So, how do you help your customers, as you just mentioned, when they're trying to deal with stressful life changes?
Well,
I think call. Call them, check in on them. They're more than customers. They're clients and they're lifelong relationships. And so caring about them enough to say, how are you doing? What do you need? How can I help? And make a connection. It is very valuable, and I think it's very rare. One of the things that we promote in our business is a handwritten note, and just the power of somebody writing a note and putting it in the mail is huge. And so while it seems small, it has huge impact.
Well, and just another thing that we work and what we teach is, good news and bad news needs to come voice to voice or face to face. And, that sometimes things don't go right in a real estate transaction. And we got to make that phone call, or we need to go by and see someone and say, hey, I'm so sorry, but the buyer terminated today. And guess what? You've got a bad roof and termites and a gas leak, right? Okay. Not a pleasant conversation to have. You certainly don't text that to someone. And it's about taking care of the relationship, and it's about taking care of the person in the process. So I think that that's one of the things that definitely is extremely important to us, that you're always putting that relationship first. So.
Okay. Another question. The real estate business is very competitive. So how do you stand out? How do you?
Service
and relationship.
Yeah.
And, it is a very competitive business. And honestly, at the time of the pandemic and oil prices declining, our association was talking about, do we need to cut budgets and cut expenses? And what I told them was, no, we're going to have a growth in our membership, because people who lose their jobs oftentimes get their real estate license, and because it's so fun to go look at pretty houses.
Yeah.
So
it's really fun to look at the pretty houses. Yeah.
So remind me of the question.
Okay, it was like, how do you
Pandemic.
stand out in a competitive?
Well,
So I think it's service.
And I think it is service. And, we subscribe to a very specific business system, a business model that is you hate to say systemized, relationship-driven type of thing, but, as far as working our business by referral. And so when we do that, we are looking to make, I won't say you'll never see us on a billboard, nothing wrong with that. That's not necessarily how Brian and I are wired to run our business. We are going to say, my job is to take the very best care of you that I possibly can. And in return, if you appreciate that level of service, please refer me to your family and friends.
Yep.
And so when you're doing that, you have a little different perspective on service. And I'm not out looking for the next transaction. I'm looking to take the very best care of you that I possibly can.
Okay.
So,
When you count your win as your client transitioning successfully from this place in life to that place in life, that's your win. That's what separates you from a business who's just counting dollars.
Okay.
or transactions.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is an interesting question. How much did you sell your first house for as a realtor?
As a realtor, well, my very first
Your
house
first
that I
sale.
sold,
Yeah.
you know what? The very first house I sold was on Livingston, and I am thinking it was in the $50,000 range. I have sold everything from a $6,000 house to multiple $1 million. And a lot in between. And so anyway, but yeah, I think the very first house I ever sold was on Livingston. And I think it was, about 60,000.
So I was 8 or 9 years behind her. So my first transaction was on Ohio, and it was probably about $85,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I remember in real estate in Midland, the year my average sales price went over $100,000. Okay. And just for perspective, our average sales price right now is probably near $350,000. And you had to sell a lot of houses to make a good living at $100,000 sales price. So,
Especially if you're selling a $6,000 house.
oh yeah, there were the $6,000 ones in there too. So anyway, but yeah, it was. Real estate's an amazing career, and if there's anyone out there listening that's interested in real estate, we would be happy to visit with you individually and tell you a little bit about what we can do, or what you can do, and what real estate can do for you, because it has been a very good business for us.
Okay. This is probably a fitting last question. Maybe I should answer this one. What's your best advice for a college student?
Oh, stay in school.
Finish.
No,
That's what I was going to say.
that's the good dad and mom answer anyway. You know what? I think that I remember when I was in school. I did my graduate work at the University of North Texas, and just had amazing opportunities there. And I think that the thing that I would tell you to a college student is this: don't give up. It really is important to finish, but it's also important to enjoy that time and build relationships and habits and all of the things that are going to help you be successful in life. It's not just about the education. It is about building that whole person. And so look for opportunities to do that.
And if I could amend my answer, I would say finish, but never stop.
Never stop learning.
Always be a learner.
Yeah,
Yeah.
never stop learning.
Well, y'all both get A's for those answers. Well, thank y'all so much for taking the time to be with us tonight and be a part of our entrepreneurial program. We do have a real entrepreneurial spirit in this part of the country, as you well
it's
know.
beautiful.
And so many of our students come into the college with real ambition, real goals, real dreams. And to hear professionals that have actualized their goals and dreams, I think is good medicine. So thank y'all so much for being here. I'm going to turn it back over to Alfredo to close our program.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Brian and Laura, on behalf of Midland College, thank you. And as a token of our small appreciation, there's something from Susie South 40 for y'all. Thank you. Dr. Thomas, yet again, thank you so very much on behalf of the Midland College BEDC. I'd also like to thank the Midland Chamber of Commerce, Midland Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, for being promotional sponsors for this event. As a reminder, the mission of the BEDC is to help people increase credit scores, purchase homes, and start or expand businesses. Please be informed that the BEDC will have a Start Your Business workshop 2 weeks from tonight on Tuesday, October 13th at 7 p.m. via WebEx. You can find more information about the BEDC about this on the BEDC's Facebook page. Again, thank you for joining us and have a great end to your evening. Thank you.